The galaxy had lived in peace for centuries. Civilizations, some ancient and others newly emerged, had learned to coexist under the unspoken rule that power and influence were the true currency in space. The advanced species that ruled the galaxy never expected that a new, unknown force would rise from the distant edges of the stars. The Human Federation, once considered a young and insignificant race, had quietly developed their technology and silently observed the more powerful empires. But no one could have predicted what happened next. Out of nowhere, a single human ship appeared in the sky above one of the most heavily fortified outposts of the Zorak Dominion, a ruthless empire known for its strength and unrelenting ambition. The Intrepid, a ship of unimaginable power, arrived without warning. It was not just another scout or diplomatic vessel, it was a weapon, crafted from human ingenuity and something else, something unknown. The Intrepid's design was unlike any alien ship the galaxy had ever seen. Powered by a fusion of cutting-edge human technology and mysterious alien innovations, it gleamed with an unsettling promise of destruction. Before the Zorak could react, the Intrepid unleashed a devastating surprise. The ship's weapons, unlike anything the galaxy had witnessed, tore through the outpost's defense shields with terrifying ease. The explosions that followed sent shockwaves through the nearby systems, and within moments, the once imposing Zorak base was reduced to nothing more than a burning wreckage. Panic spread quickly as the galaxy's most powerful empires scrambled to make sense of what had just happened. Who were these humans, and where had they come from? How could one ship bring down a fortified base so easily? The Intrepid did not retreat or hide. Instead, it boldly broadcast a message that would echo across the stars, igniting fear and confusion in every corner of the galaxy. The words, though simple, held the weight of a clear declaration. We are humanity. We choose our destiny. You will know the meaning of fear. News of the attack spread like wildfire. Diplomats and leaders from every empire, both allied and rival, rushed to discuss the implications. How could a single human vessel be so powerful? The Zorak, one of the oldest and most feared empires in the galaxy, had just been humbled by an unknown force. What did this mean for the future of the galaxy? Some whispered that humanity had found something beyond their understanding, some ancient technology or secret, while others simply believed they had been underestimated for too long. The Intrepid's captain, Alina Wren, remained silent for days, letting the silence of the aftermath speak volumes. Rumors spread about her leadership, how she was unshaken by the chaos, how she seemed to know exactly what to do next. Wren, a sharp-minded strategist and fearless leader, had no intention of backing down. Her crew, a diverse group of humans from all walks of life, were not just warriors. They were survivors, explorers, and thinkers who had long dreamed of a place in the stars. Now, they had found it, but at a great cost. They were not here to make alliances or beg for permission. They had come to show the galaxy that they were not to be overlooked anymore. This attack was not the last. While the galaxy tried to piece together what had happened, Wren's message only gained strength. It wasn't just a declaration of war, it was a challenge. Humanity was not afraid of the powerful forces that ruled the galaxy. The Intrepid had sparked a fire that would soon engulf the entire galaxy. The peaceful balance of power, once thought unbreakable, was now threatened by a single, determined human ship. No one knew what the next move would be. But one thing was certain: humanity was no longer the weak, fledgling race they had once been. They had come, and they would not leave quietly. They would make the galaxy realize that they were here to stay, no matter the cost. And as the first sparks of war began to fly, the question everyone was asking was not what humanity had done, but how had they managed to do it? What was the secret of the Intrepid and the humans who wielded it? It would be a mystery the galaxy would be desperate to solve before humanity's next move shattered everything they knew. The galaxy's response to humanity's sudden rise was swift and unforgiving. The Zorak Dominion, long seen as the most powerful empire in the galaxy, wasted no time in rallying its allies. Within days, a coalition was formed, consisting of the Zorak, the Shalaya Collective, and the Krethar Conglomerate, three of the most influential and feared powers in space. They vowed to eliminate humanity before the fledgling species could grow too powerful. It was not just a military alliance, but a unified front of fear, anger, and suspicion. The galaxy's ruling powers saw the human attack as an existential threat. The idea that such a young and untested species could rise to challenge their supremacy was unthinkable. They called for a galactic summit, inviting representatives from all major empires to discuss the looming crisis. The summit was held in a neutral space, an ancient station that had once been the site of many diplomatic meetings between alien species. But this time, the atmosphere was tense, charged with suspicion and fear. As leaders and diplomats argued over the best course of action, the humans, represented by Captain Alina Wren, sat in silence, waiting. The room grew uneasy, with the alien delegates whispering among themselves, unsure how to deal with this unexpected challenger. The proposal from the galactic powers was clear. Humanity must submit, must be controlled before they could grow into a real threat. But Captain Wren had no interest in negotiations. With a calm yet unwavering determination, she stood and addressed the summit. The room fell silent. Her voice rang out, echoing through the vast chamber as she declared humanity's position. "We didn't come here to ask for your permission," she said, her tone cold and resolute. "We came to show you that we will not be subjugated any longer. The era of human oppression is over. The galaxy will tremble before us." Her words struck like a lightning bolt. Across the galaxy, every species heard her speech, and it spread like wildfire. The image of a human captain, standing in the heart of the galaxy's most powerful empires, boldly rejecting their authority, was a shock to everyone. Humanity, once regarded as insignificant and weak, had turned the tables. They had made their intentions clear. This wasn't about diplomacy or alliance. It was about domination, and they weren't going to back down. From that moment on, humanity was viewed differently. They were no longer the underdogs. They were a force to be reckoned with. For some, this was a terrifying realization. The galactic powers who had once looked down on humans now found themselves divided. Some factions, terrified of what humanity might become, called for immediate action, more attacks, more destruction, before it was too late. But others, seeing the potential of humanity's raw strength, began to reconsider their position. Some, alien species, tired of the galactic elite's control, secretly reached out to the humans, hoping to form alliances of their own. Captain Wren, however, had no intention of relying on others. She had a different vision for humanity's future, one where they would not be subjugated or controlled by any alien empire. She wasn't fighting for survival. She was fighting to prove humanity's rightful place in the galaxy. The war, as far as she was concerned, was more than just about winning battles. It was about sending a message to every empire, every species, that humanity would not be silenced. With her leadership, humanity began to prepare for the inevitable war. The Intrepid led the charge, its crew unwavering in their mission to spread the message that humanity would not bow to anyone. The galaxy watched, divided, as humans became both the most feared and the most coveted species. The lines were being drawn. Some would fight to destroy humanity, while others would seek to join them. But the one thing that was certain was that humanity was no longer an afterthought. They had become a power that could not be ignored. The tension continued to rise, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Would the galactic powers be able to crush humanity before they could grow too strong? Or would humanity's boldness inspire a new age of rebellion? No one knew what would happen next, but one thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same again. The war had only just begun. The galaxy's response to humanity had been swift and brutal. The alien coalition, consisting of the mighty Zorak, Dominion, the cunning Shalia Collective, and the vast Krithar conglomerate, launched a series of devastating attacks on human colonies and ships. They believed that a few decisive victories would force humanity into submission, pushing them back into the shadows where they belonged. The alien forces, armed with superior technology and overwhelming numbers, were confident that humanity would crumble beneath their might. They underestimated one key factor: the indomitable spirit of humanity. Captain Alina Wren, though facing overwhelming odds, was a master strategist. She had spent years studying alien tactics, learning their strengths and weaknesses, and carefully planning humanity's next move. The Intrepid was not just a ship. It was a symbol of human resilience, and its crew, though small, was determined to prove their worth. Captain Wren knew that direct confrontation with the overwhelming alien forces would be suicide, so she set her sights on something more cunning: a trap. The humans lured the alien fleet into the heart of the Scorched Nebula, a treacherous and nearly impassable region of space. The nebula's dense clouds of gas and dust created an environment where even the most advanced sensors were rendered useless, perfect for a trap. The human ships, smaller and more agile, moved in and out of the nebula, evading detection while setting up a series of decoys. The coalition fleet, overconfident and blinded by their own arrogance, fell right into the trap. As the aliens pushed deeper into the nebula, the humans struck. Using guerrilla tactics, unorthodox thinking, and sheer resourcefulness, the Intrepid and its fleet launched a surprise assault. The humans used the nebula's confusing layout to their advantage, ambushing the alien ships from unexpected angles. The battle raged on, but the human ships, equipped with advanced but unconventional technology, outmaneuvered and outsmarted the alien forces at every turn. The turning point came when the humans, in a daring move, targeted the flagship of the Zorak Dominion. The Zorak, confident in their might, had not anticipated such an attack. With surgical precision, the humans crippled the flagship, sending it spiraling into the heart of the nebula. The resulting explosion was a massive shockwave that echoed across the galaxy. In an instant, the once untouchable Zorak Dominion had suffered a humiliating defeat. The news spread like wildfire. The Intrepid's victory was not just a military success, it was a message. Humanity, against all odds, had struck back. The unthinkable had happened. Humans had bested the might of one of the galaxy's oldest and most powerful empires. The victory was a catalyst that sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The Intrepid became a symbol of resistance, a beacon of hope for those tired of the oppressive rule of the galactic powers. As news of the battle reached far-flung corners of the galaxy, more and more worlds began to take notice. Some of them, once loyal to the established empires, now saw the potential in humanity's bold defiance. They, too, had been oppressed for far too long. The Intrepid's victory sparked a wave of support for humanity. Planets that had once been subjugated by the galactic elite began to rally to the human cause, offering their resources, ships, and soldiers in the fight for freedom. The alliances of old began to fracture as old enemies saw the opportunity for new alliances. The galaxy, once united under the rule of the major powers, now faced a new reality. The war was no longer just about survival for humanity, it was about challenging the very foundation of the established order. As more worlds joined their cause, humanity's presence in the galaxy grew stronger. The old galactic empires were beginning to realize that humanity was not a fleeting threat to be crushed, but a rising power that could change the very fabric of the galaxy itself. But this was only the beginning. Captain Wren knew that the victory in the Scorched Nebula was just the first step. The galaxy was still full of powerful enemies, and the path to victory would not be easy. However, with the spirit of humanity burning brighter than ever, there was no turning back. The war was far from over, and the galaxy would soon learn that humanity was not just a force to be reckoned with. They were a force that would reshape the stars themselves. The tide of war had begun to shift. What was once a desperate fight for survival had transformed into a relentless offensive. The humans, no longer on the back foot, now surged forward with a fury that took the galaxy by surprise. The mighty galactic coalition, once united under the banner of dominance, was beginning to falter. The combined strength of the Zorak Dominion, the Shalia Collective, and the Krethar conglomerate, though still formidable, had cracked under the pressure of humanity's relentless attacks. The unity that had held these empires together for centuries was beginning to crumble. The defections were the first signs of the shift. Species that had long been oppressed or underestimated began to break ranks. Seeing humanity's rise, some alien factions, once loyal to the coalition, chose to join the human cause. They offered invaluable technology, expertise, and ships that bolstered humanity's growing strength. Others, dissatisfied with their leaders, took matters into their own hands, quietly sabotaging enemy operations, shifting the tide in humanity's favor. These new alliances were forged not just out of desperation, but out of a shared belief that the established galactic order needed to be dismantled. For the first time in the war, humanity was on the offensive. The Intrepid, with its crew of hardened soldiers and brilliant minds, led the charge across the galaxy. The human fleet, now expanding and better equipped, took on larger and more powerful enemy forces with an unyielding determination. Each victory brought new allies and more systems that joined the rebellion. The battles, once fought in the shadows of desperation, were now full-scale wars for freedom. Humanity was no longer a nuisance. They were a threat, a force that could not be ignored. But not all was peaceful within the ranks of the humans. The internal conflict, simmering beneath the surface, began to surface more clearly as the war raged on. Voices of dissent grew louder, particularly from figures like Admiral Gideon Sykes, a seasoned veteran who had seen the horrors of war. Sykes, a respected leader in the human fleet, became increasingly vocal in his opposition to the methods being employed. He feared that humanity, in its quest to overthrow the old order, was at risk of becoming just like the tyrants they sought to destroy. "We must not lose ourselves in this fight," he warned. "We cannot become the very thing we despise." His words struck a chord with some, but for many, the urgency of the war overshadowed such concerns. Captain Wren, whose focus remained on victory, dismissed the criticisms, arguing that humanity could not afford to be distracted by philosophical debates while their survival was at stake. The war was no longer just a matter of freedom. It had become personal. The stakes were too high, and humanity could not afford to be weak. The Zorak Dominion and their allies would never stop until they were crushed, and every victory made their enemies more determined to retaliate. As the internal debates continued, the momentum of humanity's rebellion continued to grow. Systems that had once been too fearful to stand against the galactic powers now rallied to the human cause, and the rebellion spread like wildfire. Humanity, once written off as a young and insignificant race, was now a true power in the galaxy. They were no longer hidden in the shadows. Every battle they fought was a reminder that they would not back down. The galaxy had underestimated them, and now they were paying the price. But it was clear to everyone that the final confrontation was drawing nearer. The Zorak Dominion, weakened but not broken, was preparing for the decisive battle that would determine the fate of the galaxy. Captain Wren and her crew knew that the last stand was inevitable, and the entire galaxy was watching, divided. Some saw humanity as a beacon of hope, a force capable of breaking the chains of oppression. Others saw them as a threat to the status quo a wild, untamed force that could plunge the galaxy into chaos. The Zorak Dominion, though reeling from defeat after defeat, still held their power, and they were not going to give up without a fight. The final battle between humanity and the Zorak seemed inevitable, and with it, the fate of the galaxy would be decided. Would humanity's growing strength be enough to secure their place in the stars, or would the galactic empires crush them? Once and for all, the rebellion had only just begun, but the end was coming, and the galaxy watched with bated breath as humanity prepared for its final test. The final battle of the war had arrived, and it would take place at the heart of the Zorak Dominion's capital, the very seat of their power. The Intrepid and its human fleet, now bolstered by a growing number of alien allies, moved to engage the combined forces of the galactic powers in a battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy. The stakes had never been higher. Humanity's survival, their place in the stars, and the future of the galaxy all rested on this decisive confrontation. The space above the Zorak homeworld became a battlefield, unlike any the galaxy had ever witnessed. Starships of every size and shape clashed in a dance of destruction, each side fighting with everything they had. Captain Alina Wren stood at the helm of the Intrepid, her mind sharp and focused. The plan was risky, but with the help of their alien allies, the humans were ready to infiltrate the heart of the Dominion. Using unorthodox tactics and the element of surprise, the human fleet managed to break through the enemy's defenses, slipping past their outer barriers to strike at the core of the Zorak Empire. As the Intrepid led the charge, humanity's forces tore through the heart of the Zorak stronghold. But even as the human fleet dealt blow after blow to the Dominion, Captain Wren knew that victory would not be complete without a personal confrontation with the Zorak Emperor. The Zorak Emperor, a figure who had once thought himself untouchable, awaited his fate in the heart of his capital. He had long believed that his empire was invincible, that the galaxy would bend to his will. But he had miscalculated, and now the tables were turned. As Captain Wren boarded a Zorak flagship, her face set with determination, the final, most personal battle of the war loomed large. The two leaders, human and Zorak, stood face to face in the heart of the enemy's command center. It was a moment of reckoning, not just for them, but for the galaxy. As the battle raged outside, Wren and the Emperor locked eyes. The Emperor sneered, confident in his superiority, but Captain Wren was resolute. She had seen the horrors of war, felt the weight of humanity's struggle, and knew that the outcome of this confrontation would shape the future. The Emperor, desperate and consumed by his arrogance, tried to break her resolve, but Wren's voice was clear and unwavering as she spoke her final message. "You thought you could control us. You were wrong. Humanity fights for freedom, and we will never kneel again." Her words rang out like a battle cry, echoing across the universe. In that moment, as the war reached its climax, the Zorak Emperor realized that his reign had come to an end. Captain Wren's victory over him was symbolic of humanity's triumph over the galaxy's long-standing oppressors. With a single decisive blow, she shattered not just the Emperor's rule, but the illusion of invincibility that had kept the galaxy in check for centuries. In the aftermath of the battle, the galaxy was forever changed. The Zorak Dominion, once a force that had terrorized the stars, crumbled under the weight of its defeat. The mighty galactic powers that had once ruled with an iron fist were now forced to confront the reality that humanity could not be ignored, could not be subjugated. The old order, built on control and domination, began to fracture. New alliances were forged, and old grudges were set aside. The galaxy was no longer a place where the powerful ruled unchecked. It was a place where humanity had carved out its place as a force to be reckoned with. Humanity, once a fledgling race, had now become a central player in the galactic order. But as Captain Wren and the Intrepid's crew looked ahead, they knew that their victory was not the end. It was only the beginning. The war may have been won, but the struggle for the future of the galaxy was far from over. A new era had begun, an era where humanity would no longer be subjugated or oppressed, but would stand as the protectors and rulers of the stars. With new allies by their side and a newfound confidence, humanity would shape the destiny of the galaxy in ways no one had ever imagined. And so, as the Intrepid soared through the stars, humanity's legacy was sealed. The universe, once a place where they were mere spectators, was now a place where they would lead. The legend of humanity's rise, their fight for freedom, and their determination to carve out a future of their own would echo through the stars for generations to come. The galaxy had changed, and with humanity at its center, the future was full of hope, possibility, and endless potential.